You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
Hi.
Hey, Craig.
Hello, Stephanie.
Fancy meeting you here.
Right? I would have never thought. Who'd have guessed that we would have once again sat down in our house and come before the microphones to join in holy matrimony.
Oh.
We are here to record this episode, and I do not want to be sitting here right now. When I talked to you earlier and asked you if you had any ideas of what we could talk about today, you brought up anger.
I did.
And I don't know if it had anything to do with what you were picking up from me this morning, but it's kind of apropos because of where I'm at right now. And
Yeah.
I'm full of anger.
Full of anger.
And I want to hide, and I want to push away, and I want to distance myself. And I was sitting at the table this morning having a rage-filled moment of wanting to smash laptops and rip the hair off the top of my head and all sorts of different things. And I was thinking about how I was trying to think about what I was actually feeling underneath all of that anger and rage. And I couldn't really find it necessarily. But I was also thinking about how I wanted to try to do something different instead of distancing myself and pushing myself away from you all day long, which is really what I want to do. Like, I've got a real big part of me inside that's like, yeah, do that.
Okay.
That's much safer, right? But I don't want to do that. I want to do things differently than I typically do, and differently than I have in the past. But so it's kind of interesting that you decided or brought up, I guess, that that's something that you wanted to explore on the podcast, because it's perfect timing. Craig's angry. So let's talk about anger.
Okay. Did you just like...
When you take notes, I'm like, what the fuck did I just say? But now she's got to... So, yeah.
There's, this has been in my space a lot lately. And I've been really sitting with anger and sitting with not only being angry, but what anger does for you and what it means to me.
Okay.
Basically. So maybe it relates out there or not, but just trying to find like the truth of it for me, and looking at it in a different way. Because we have the, you're never supposed to get angry. And then, yes, you are supposed to get, I thought I had it. Sorry. And then, yes, anger is healthy, but you have to do it in the right way. And so all of these things is like, it seems too complicated too. It's like I'm either wrong for being angry, or I'm being angry incorrectly in the wrong way. So regardless, anger equals wrong. Anger equals you're bad. You are having a reaction or behaving in a way that you should not be behaving, and all of that, I guess, bullshit that comes with it.
It's a very misunderstood emotion.
It is. And my realizations that I'm hoping that we get to dive into today might be like this is a new revelation for me, and understanding what it means for me and my connotations with it. But it could be a collective understanding that Steph's just last to the party with, and I'm okay with that, because you know what? Look who showed up fashionably late.
Maybe you're first to the party.
Maybe I am. Who knows, right? But it's just been circulating, and it's because, there's so much anger right now in like the world. There's so much anger. We are at a point at least in the United States, where there is a lot of anger and a lot of pain and fear. And then where we are at personally in our lives, there's a lot of anger. And I know that like today is hard for you on like so many different things, and everything that you're feeling and how angry you are. And it's just like anger is a prominent thing that no matter, I don't know why that is so satisfying, but that thing looks so freaking cool.
Would you like to touch it?
I would like to touch it, actually. Can I touch it?
If you're only listening, I realize how funny that just sounded. That thing looks, what did you say? That looks so interesting.
Did I say it? Yeah, it's, I love it. It looks like a crystal, and it looks like the scraping tool. And I feel like I could start doing manual therapy with it. And I love it.
Only thinking about my penis right now.
Are you?
in all the things that you just described. That's not what we're talking about. If you're only listening.
I like to hold it on my face.
Okay, hold on. We're going to squirrel away from anger.
But it's cool. Can I touch it already?
Yeah, it's wax. It's wax, folks.
Oh, it totally looks like a penis.
Right, it's wax. We have a candle on the table on the last episode that we recorded. The
it's
candle.
A wax.
Hold on.
I was going to smell
I gotta
it.
explain away the not the pseudonyms, the sexual innuendos that were just rampant.
So cool.
Right? It's a neat little piece of wax. It's
It
just
is.
wax.
Here, I'll let you hold it.
You can keep holding it.
It's okay. I'll give you the penis back.
No. We'll put it over
I
here by the
really
fire.
like it. I wonder if that's why I'm like, oh, that's really fascinating. I like it and want to touch it. Is
It's
it just
purple,
because
too.
it's a purple penis? It's not. It's just wax, but it's purple and I don't know.
Okay, let's go back to anger. We got a little squirreled.
I'm feeling like that's very cool.
So there's lots of anger in the world today.
Yeah. So there's lots of anger and what we're going through emotionally. Do you want to like dive into? Okay. So I have been told that anger, like the awareness of like, because anger is something that is scary.
Mm-hmm.
Anger is something that not only are you not supposed to like fall into. If you are angry, then if you allow yourself to get angry, you're weak. But that's like more for women.
Got to control your emotions.
You got to control your emotions. Women,
it's a masculine thing too.
Well, I can speak to that, and you can speak to the masculine thing, and I can give you the presumptions that it comes towards the masculine energy, and you can give me the perceptions towards the feminine energy,
Okay.
which have nothing to do with gender, but that's how it lies, anyways. So weak, giving into emotions, we're supposed to be in control of ourselves always. If we are less than, and just all of the ways that it's negative if a woman gets angry. And then the way that it's perceived is that when men get angry, it is allowed, it is understandable. Hold on. This is just like a perception of like they aren't weak for getting angry. They're allowed to get angry because they're men. Yet they are supposed to control their anger. They are supposed to, like, they can't get too angry. They can't, but yet they can get angry. So then it goes back and forth of like, men are the only ones that are allowed to be angry, but they still can't show that anger as an emotion because then it's violent and it's scary and they're intimidating. But like, so there's just this mix, right? Women, you're not supposed to be angry. And if you are supposed to be angry, it's like a gosh darn it. And then you channel all of that and you use it for good. And men, it's understandable because men are wired that way, but they're still not allowed to express it. But if they express it, you're supposed to understand and give them space because they're men. Does that?
Yeah.
So that's just like, this isn't my belief. This isn't what I'm saying how it is. This is understanding and just like a pinpoint of some of the, I guess, control aspects that come into it. How does that like?
I agree with all those.
Yeah. Do you have anything to add? Do you have like?
I think that I mean, I would argue, and argue is the wrong term, right? We're not arguing, but I would add that I think it's also not an acceptable emotion for men.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the societal programming is that anger is just not allowed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I can see what you're saying about how it's an acceptable emotion for men, but only to a certain extent, right? And within context. And but I kind of don't feel that way. I don't feel like that's been communicated to me over the course of my life.
Yeah.
In different circumstances and
What
in different
has
ways.
been communicated to you?
Don't get angry.
Don't get angry. Yeah.
Right. Like there isn't,
Why?
because it's just not an acceptable emotion.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you should allow yourself to get. Like if you get to the point where you feel angry, then you've done something wrong. Like not in the sense that you made a mistake, but it's like there's something wrong with you. You need to fix that. You need to rein that back in and control your emotions rather than allow, like the weakness of strength in order to allow your emotions to get to the point where they're where you're angry.
Weakness and strength.
Yeah. Where like that's a weakness. Anger is a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
It's an unacceptable emotion. It's fine to be passionate. It's fine to be like to have a little bit of a temper or to get frustrated. Frustration's okay.
Is frustration okay?
Right. You can get frustrated.
Okay.
But you can't get angry.
Okay.
And if you get angry, whoa.
You're out of line. You've done something wrong.
You got to fix that.
Something
You've done
wrong
something
with you.
wrong. There's something wrong with you.
Do you know where you started to get that belief, or where you heard that and where that started to
Yeah,
form?
I mean, all of this is not all of this, but yeah, that's childhood. That's from my parents.
Yeah. Why do you think kids get angry?
Because something's wrong.
Because something's wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like totally where I want to lean into. So anger is a sign. It's a warning light. It's an indication to you that something is wrong. And when you have kids that don't have the context of societal standards, like that is their expression. That is how they know something is wrong. That is how they know that a boundary has been crossed. And we are told from a young age that boundary is not ours to have, that we should not be angry, that we need to calm it down, that we need to reel it in, that this essentially goes into our boundary is unacceptable because we are wrong for this. So then we associate anger with being wrong, with doing something wrong, and the boundary, that voice inside of us that says this is wrong, this is not okay for me, gets shut down. And so we start to have it's like instead of like solid boundaries, instead of a knowingness, it's not even like water, it's like a mist, it's like an air, it's like a boundary that maybe you can see, but it has no strength. It is completely penetrable. There's no boundary there. You can see it, but then when that starts to come up, it's something that you will not honor because you are wrong. You have been taught that you are wrong. And like this kind of goes towards my belief in anger of the not my belief, this isn't here, but the agreement that was instilled into me that I adopted as my own agreement for a while, and I'm still struggling with because this is probably one of the first ones, is that anger and violence are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so anger equals violence. And it's like, and when somebody is angry, you're showing violent behavior.
Right.
And then you were told they're angry. This is anger. And it's like, that is not anger. That is violence.
Yeah.
And so you have that misconception of anger equals violence. So when you have that belief, then that's how you learn to express it. Right. And that's like the emotions that come up as violent emotions because anger is violence. And anger has nothing to do with violence. Violence is its own. It's standing out. It is an action that is displayed. It is not anger. Can anger cause it? Yeah. So can fear. So can like so many other things. I'm not going to tear apart or try and dive into violence right now. But like one of the things, like for me personally, this is how my assumptions came and my agreements came is, and why the belief that men get to be angry was that was always excused away. Is when violence happened, the expression was they got angry. Maybe you got a sorry for them being angry, or more commonly, a blame placed on you. That wouldn't have happened if you didn't make them angry. So violence and anger is, and I feel like that is a common thing in the world, is like that's what we associate it with, violence and anger.
Yeah.
So the fear of anger is actually the fear of violence. So we're told to not be angry instead of saying don't like control your violence, like don't be violent. Violent is a different thing. So when we feel this emotion that comes up that is saying our boundaries are being crossed, we can't trust that, but then our display, our action is what has been programmed into us since we were little, that is violent.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
How does that like sit with you? I mean, I understand you agree, but will you elaborate on your experience of that? If you're able?
if I'm able to.
Yeah.
You're very kind. You're like, we're
And if
recording
not,
a podcast,
I can move on.
sweetheart. We're going to need more than I agree. I think you're right. I think that the association between those two things, right? Violence and anger. And so it's like control your anger so that you don't get violent. And if you show even the slightest hint of anger, then the very next thing is to come is violence, right? And like you said, it gets interpreted that way. Like I remember growing up and just being a really like, I had a lot of emotion. I had a lot of anger inside of me. I think I had a lot of pent up things inside of me as a child. And it would come out in this explosive, violent way, in a sense, where it would be destructive, and I would hit things or break things or want to fight with my brothers, or just all of that expression of the emotion inside of me, right? That I would label as angry or anger, and was also labeled that way. And it's almost like I can't separate in my head, excuse me, if anger doesn't manifest as violence, then what does it manifest as? Like, how is anger supposed to be felt or processed or displayed? Like, I understand what you're saying intellectually, and I agree with it. And then I have this part of me that it's like, okay, I guess I understand what you're saying, but then what? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, if I'm going to express, so this morning's a good example where I'm angry and I don't want to have any outward expression of that anger because I don't want to trigger you, and I don't want to upset you, and I don't want to like dysregulate your nervous system. I just want to seclude myself away and hide myself away so that I don't trigger you or upset you in any way. I don't want to, when I say hurt you, I'm not hurting you physically. It's not like my anger is explosive and you're going to get hurt physically, but I don't want to hurt you emotionally. I don't want you to get scared. I don't want you to get upset. I don't want you to think that you've done anything wrong. Because zero, like what I'm feeling today has zero to do with anything that you have done, said, or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want you to interpret my anger as that. So it's like I want to protect you from this anger that I'm feeling. And I have like a binary, right? Here we go with the paradox of I have a black or a white response here.
Yeah.
I can either bury it.
Yeah.
So that it just goes away by like the stuffing and the burying of it, right?
It's totally a healthy option right there.
Totally healthy.
That works for everyone.
Or I can express it.
Yeah.
But the expression of that anger is through
what?
Violence.
That's one expression.
Well, that's the process in my brain, right? It's like I don't know how to express, because immediately as soon as I felt like this thing come up over me this morning, I was just like,
want to smash the computer.
I'm like, I'm going to go outside and yell. I'm going to scream. I'm going to start, like, I picture myself destroying things in our garage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's not safe to do. So I will just like resist. So I have a game is relative. It's a fucking torture.
Yeah.
It's not a game. I will either resist that urge to express that anger in the ways that I feel like aren't healthy, or I will try to circumvent the anger and think past it as to see what is actually causing it.
Yeah.
And both of those things, I'm just avoiding the feeling of the anger.
Yeah.
Like I'm avoiding allowing it to just be present and be felt and exist inside of me.
And again, what happens? You're avoiding it because violence is the outcome.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're violent towards people, but it's like your emotion is you're associating it with a violent outburst.
Yes.
In a sense that can either cause you regret or can scare the people that you love.
Yeah.
So
and it's even
neither of
just
those
like
are
the
acceptable.
silliness of, and silly isn't a right word. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
slamming doors, or do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. That can cause a scary environment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stomping around the house and
Yeah.
letting it flow, letting it manifest that way.
Yeah.
But even that doesn't like, it's such a fucking weird emotion, because if I start slamming things and
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like if I would have, like it was all that I could do to like close the laptop and slide it away from me,
Yeah.
because I want to slam the laptop
Mm-hmm.
on the table and throw it across the room. And I have these visions of it. Like there's so many times
The shattering, the
we
expression.
have a big window in our front room. In our living room, we have a big glass window. We have a big wooden window. And there's so many times where I envision throwing things through that window,
Yeah.
whether it's the laptop or the coffee mug or the fucking chair
Yeah.
or the cop. Like there's so many times where I just want to throw shit out that fucking window.
What is it with that window? Asher expresses that too. He also wants to throw things out that window. And I'm like,
I have no idea what it
Yeah.
is. It's like, how can I make this anger manifest externally?
how can you get the expression and the release that you need internally but isn't allowed? So how can you find that externally?
Yes. And
Yeah.
every single time that I've ever expressed anger externally in that way, like I haven't thrown something through our window,
Gratefully.
but you know, I have spent a lifetime of punching holes in the walls, and growing up, that was how anger was expressed.
Uh-huh. Also, how did you learn that? Was
Oh.
that your your
Nope.
cause and effect,
That
or
was very much
you got shown?
example. Yeah.
Yeah, you got shown that this is how you deal with anger.
Yeah.
Because anger has an association with violence.
Yeah.
Because the only outlet for anger is violence, and violence is actually anger
Yes.
when it's not.
Yes. And every time it manifests externally that way,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel better.
Right?
It's not like suddenly like, oh God, that did the trick. I threw the laptop through the window. So relieved now. Thank goodness. No, it's like, fuck, I just broke the laptop and the window and I have to fix that. You know, it's like,
It keeps getting worse.
it just gets worse. It doesn't do anything other than continue the shittiness of the feeling.
So there is the anger, the core is a boundary that has been violated. It's how you know something is wrong. But to sit and to tell yourself that you're not supposed to feel that, and in that moment of like that anger, and be like, well, now's a good time to dissect this. I don't find that healthy. I find that harmful.
Which part?
That like there's definitely times, and must like everything, but like if you're like, you have that boundary crossed, and it doesn't have to be a boundary, but it stems from that. Anger comes from that. So when something doesn't go right, that essentially you can like see the connection of how that can feel like a boundary. So even though it's like the computer not working,
Yeah, your safety or something.
you're safe,
right?
but you have that association, and then it goes back to boundaries where you weren't allowed to feel, you weren't allowed to go. So while that is a thing, that is something to be looked at in calm moments. But when you are angry, when that happens,
Uh-huh.
your body needs an outlet. It needs a reaction. And maybe you're in a crowded room and you can't like take a moment. And so you have to figure out how to like, but your body needs to like, your body needs to go through that cycle. Your body, like you have anger for a reason.
Yeah.
If you didn't get angry, you wouldn't know where lines were crossed. And the shitty thing is that when lines were crossed, we were told that we were wrong and that we were bad. And this is like the cause and effect. So all of that shit. So other than throwing a laptop through the window, which, you know, you didn't do, clarify again, you didn't do. But what did you do? You just sat there and held it all in.
Yeah.
So what would another method look like? How can we find ways to express our anger? To let it come out, let it complete that cycle. Can we find things to do? Like going outside and yelling would be a great thing. However, then you have neighbors like, oh, why is he yelling? He's scared, you know, because somebody has an expression. But that is a healthy reaction to want to go outside and be like, ah, and let that out. That is an expression that gets to be felt. So it comes up with ways of how can we teach ourselves? How can we find ways to express and let our anger go through a cycle? Because like we don't have the healthy ways. So what are some healthy ways? Like, could you, like, I really liked the punching bag in the garage that hasn't, that is, you're like, well, punching, I'm not punching anybody. I'm not threatening to, but my body has all of this, and I have this anger, and I have this, like, it feels like I'm being burned and twisted and pulled apart. The pain inside is so physical. I have to find a way to get that out. My ways have been, yes, I yell to get people away from me, but then I hurt myself, because that's how violence and anger was displayed to me. Not to hurt yourself, but to be taken out on me. So my go-to of when I get angry, it's like the same, like pulling your hair out. Like I hurt myself, and to try and get to where I stopped beating up my own body with anger. That's such a realization of, like, you have outward anger and internalized anger. How maybe you have both. How were you shown? I was the outlet for anger. Physical pain, taking it out on me was how anger was resolved. So when I get angry, I cause myself physical pain and I take it out on me. And yeah, I lash out to try and clear the space because I don't want anybody else to hurt me. But it's like I would do really horrible things to myself because that's how people took out their anger. That's how I was shown from a small age. This is where anger goes. So to try and find that and to take that out, because just sitting there and holding it down, and the way it feels like for this point is you're reinforcing that misty boundary, that boundary that you don't really get to have because you're trying to hold it in instead of saying, this isn't working for me and I do not accept this. You're holding it in. So I don't think that just holding it in is healthy. I'm not saying go be violent. That's not anger. That's violence. That's different. That's also a learned pattern from not being able to express or feel or be allowed to have angry because you weren't allowed to have boundaries. So our work for this point in time is how can we come up with ways to allow ourselves to be angry, allow ourselves to have that outward expression to where we can let it out without causing harm to anybody else or ourselves. That is, and holding it in is causing massive, massive, massive harm to ourselves. Yeah. So how can we let it out? And then we can learn to see that and trust our anger as our guide. Trust our anger to be like, this, something is off here. And I get to look at this and I get to see where I'm going to set a boundary. And then trusting ourselves to start to not just see the boundaries, but to give the solid substance, to give substance to our boundaries. So it starts to firm up and we can start owning it. I feel like our anger, not that we're trying to get rid of anger. No, anger is a gift. But the expression, is going to lessen when we are allowed to express it in a healthy way and we are allowed to see it and then start setting our boundaries.
I've never had a healthy expression of anger.
Yeah.
I mean, never seems not likely. Maybe it is. I know I've never been shown. I'm so critical of it too. I'm so one of the things that drives me absolutely crazy is when the solution is to yell into a pillow. I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that as a solution. Well, if you're angry, just yell or scream into a pillow. And I'm like, why the fuck are we wasting time with a pillow? Do you know what I mean? It feels like more stuffing down. It feels like more avoidance. It feels like more, you're not allowed to express this thing. Mm-hmm. So you better muffle it so that it doesn't scare other people. When I get really angry, I don't care if it scares other people. And I don't know if I've ever, I mean, I'm sure I have had the thought, or at least something along the lines of like, you know, your like go-to is to scream to push people away.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see how I do that too, right? Like I'm going to put, like this morning, it was really clear to me that I was putting off this vibe of like when you came downstairs from doing yoga, I'm sure you could tell that I was angry. I'm sure you could tell that there was something wrong with me. And rather than try to communicate any of that, I just continue to like radiate that so that you would stay away from me and leave me alone. And there's a part of my thought process that is like, I'm angry, leave me alone. Like, can't you see I'm angry? Leave me alone. But then it's like, what's the subconscious part of that? Like, why am I doing that?
Are you asking?
No, I think, like, am I doing that to protect you, or am I doing that to punish myself? Because it's like, boy, it's fucking convoluted.
Is there another option?
I'm sure there is, of course, right? I don't know what it is, though.
Can I share mine?
Please.
So when we go back to, and it's something that just like occurred, when we go back to anger tells us what?
Something's wrong.
Tells us something wrong. Something's wrong. Our boundaries have been crossed.
Mm-hmm. Safety is threatened in some way.
Yes. So that is our inner knowing. That is before it was like changed and altered. However, that is like the anger's purpose. Something is wrong. I am not safe.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get angry and you want to push away, it's because that anger, that knowing in there is saying it doesn't matter what caused it, who's around. Your inner knowing is, I'm not safe.
So I'm just protecting myself.
You're trying to protect yourself. And it's not in a selfish way, and it's not about you. It's like you have that inner being
mm-hmm.
that is like, I get angry because I am not safe. My boundaries are crossed. So when I feel anger, immediately, regardless of how we express it, I am not safe. And it doesn't have to be those levels of like, oh, I'm not safe, my body's threatened. But when we have been conditioned to ignore it and our boundaries have been violated over and over again, there's not a difference between I'm angry because the computer didn't work and I'm angry because my body is being violated. There is not a difference because we haven't been allowed to feel it or express it or have our boundaries.
It's all the same, huh?
It's all the same.
Yeah, so this morning, because as we're sitting here talking about this, I mean, I'm feeling a bunch of different things, right? But what really triggered me this morning was we had the podcast scheduled to come out today, and something happened and it didn't come out. And there's some sort of technical issue, like on the back end, so that it's not working the way that it's supposed to work, which on the grand scheme of things is like next to not important at all. It's not that big of an issue whatsoever, right? The world didn't come to a screeching halt because the latest episode of our podcast wasn't released today. And I believe I know why. And like it's twofold. So this is what sparks the anger. First and foremost, there's an aspect of it that is my fault. I don't need to get into the weeds on the technical aspects of uploading content for a podcast, but there's a component of this mistake today that is my fault, where I should have paid closer attention when I uploaded the episode, a week ago or whatever, and had it all scheduled to come out today. I should have paid closer attention. And I believe, I'm not certain, but I'm fairly certain that that's what the issue is. It's a storage capacity issue. However, there's another part of it where the company that we use, the website, the company that we use to disseminate and share the podcast through, they have made modifications and changes to their platform that they have bugs in their system. So truthfully, I'm aware of this issue because it's happened before, and I should have paid closer attention so that it didn't happen again. And it's an issue that shouldn't happen because there's something about it that's outside of my control, right? Where it shouldn't be an issue to start with. They shouldn't have this bug in their system, or they should have fixed this issue already so that this thing couldn't have happened a second time. I shouldn't have to. It's like we're on this planet together, everybody, right? And I have to shift and accommodate around somebody else instead of them just doing their job. If they would just do their job and not have a mistake in their website or their software or their new system, and it worked the way that it was supposed to work, then I wouldn't have to accommodate the way that I do things. But because they didn't fix their issue, I have to accommodate the way that I do things in order to circumvent their issue. And I just messed up this time and forgot to double check myself. So it's this twofold thing. But truthfully, I feel as I'm sitting here articulating it, I seriously feel like I'm about 5 right now, complaining that I spilled a glass of milk. Because this isn't important. It's not a big deal. But it activates that thing inside of me that's yes, I can take responsibility for my actions and realize that, yes, I made a mistake. However, this is somebody else's fucking mistake that I'm now dealing with, that I'm paying for, right? Had somebody else not fucked up and, they should have fixed it already, then I wouldn't be in this current situation that I'm in. So that's really what this anger is. And on the surface, it seems really superficial and silly. But internally, it's sparking this thing inside of me where, like you said, right? I mean, and then I'm just feeling super judged right now. I know you're not thinking. Well, why don't you just tell me what you're thinking?
Are you in the space? I'm going to speak in code.
Okay.
But are you in the space?
To a certain extent.
Okay.
To a certain extent.
Okay.
I can't go super far.
We won't go super far. And when we're there, right?
Yeah.
So think of the big, the core problem and the little outlets, right?
Yeah.
We find a way when we have the core boundary, the core wound, we're just going to keep with the boundaries that are being violated. And we are not able to express that.
Yeah.
We find something that mimics that exact same thing. When something, we find, but when something mimics that same thing, then we can.
Oh, it's perfect. I see it. Sorry, I don't mean to jump the gun on you, babe. I just don't want to go into it too far.
We don't have to. So it's that awareness. This has nothing to do with that.
Right. It has nothing to do with the podcast.
But
it's
you communicated beautifully everything that you are feeling about that. You expressed your boundary, but in a place that it was safe to have a boundary.
Right.
It's okay if you have a boundary about the computer. It's okay if you have a boundary about the platform. So I can express it there because that is allowed there. Here, I'm not allowed to have one.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. there has been so much that we haven't talked about on this podcast all of this year for 2022.
Yeah.
And like when we talk in code, because we've done that this year too, because we've had to. I'm starting to get tired of it. I'm starting to get tired of talking in code. And I'm starting to get tired of like, not expressing things, especially like on our fucking podcast, right? It's our life. Yeah, so the thing that triggered me this morning that you so beautifully helped me see the big picture for, this idea of what I just got done articulating, right? Where somebody didn't do their job. Like there was a mistake and a mix up and just a fuck up. And somebody hasn't fixed it yet. And because somebody didn't fix their fuck up, I have to alter and adjust how I live my life. And if I didn't, like, that's in the way of how see, I don't even need to try to talk around it anymore. How did you see this? Was it just as I was talking about it all?
When you go back and you edit this, now you have the awareness that you have. You're gonna listen to you describe what you're feeling about the computer, and knowing what it's actually about, you're gonna hear your words.
Yeah. See what's happening. See, I feel like I gotta fucking articulate it and explain it to the person listening, because otherwise it just sounds like nonsense.
You don't owe anybody anything.
I know I don't owe anybody anything, babe. I know that. Like I totally fucking recognize that. And I also owe myself a bunch.
Yeah, you do. You deserve.
Right? Like
Yeah.
I don't owe the external person or world or thing. But I sure as the fuck owe myself a bunch. I am angry because my mom didn't fix her fuck-ups, and she didn't fix her shit and her problems and her issues by the time I came around. So then I had to alter the way that I lived my life, in a sense. And the way that my life was lived was altered because of her inability to fix her fuck-ups and her mistakes. And now it's like, that angers me. That angers me. That like I am responsible for altering how I want to just move through life because she didn't fix her fuck-ups. I'm angry about that. I hear these I was listening to this thing the other day vicariously. I was busy at the computer and Asher was listening to a some TikTok or video or something online on his phone. And it was somebody that was talking about, like, they were telling the story of this person who saw their parent murdered or killed or decapitated or something horrendous and terrible. But it was in the context of like some war-torn place or something like that, right? And this person that they were talking about, and it was just somebody telling a story. It wasn't even the actual people involved. And they talked about this person who witnessed that as a child, who basically just picked themselves up and moved on. And the moral of the story or of this inspirational video was like, this person didn't whine about what happened to them or about trauma or about anything. They were able to basically just move on and live a good life in a sense, or that did not stop them. Something as terrible as, witnessing your parents killed. And I'm sitting here complaining and expressing these emotions and this anger and this sadness in regards to my mom. And I am really tired of the narrative that like we're not allowed to feel the things that we're feeling. We're not allowed to be fucked up by them. And that it's like, quit blaming your parents. Like this whole thing of like, it's nobody else's responsibility at this point. It's just your responsibility. Yes, that's true. And like the whole part of this is the and part, right? The and part is the part that people don't want to acknowledge and feel and recognize and validate. Yes, I'm responsible for my own healing. Yes, I can't sit here and blame my mom for all of my problems as an adult. Yes, it's up to me. Yes, 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 yes. And it's really fucked up. And it is sad and heartbreaking, and it makes me angry, and it fucks me up, and I can be weak for it, and I can suffer for it, and I can complain about it, and I can have all of these other experiences, and I can also do something about it. But the idea that we don't get the space to actually feel those things and express those things and process those things, and we just have to basically be like, well, that sucks to be you, but go ahead and buck up and live your fucking life and get over it already. Like, get over it already is the problem. The idea that you're just going to get over something and then to tell some stupid fucking story and compare somebody else's trauma, and all of those things that we do to ourselves internally, right? I didn't have it as bad as this person or this experience, or, I should have done this in a different way. And all of that's it's just shit. It's just garbage. It's nonsense. However it affects you and however you go through it is you. And you have to have the freedom and the compassion and the understanding that, yes, it's up to you at this point if you're an adult. And it sucks that it happened to you as a child. And can you sit in the space of both of those things? So I'm angry. Probably going to be angry the rest of the day. Maybe not, I don't know. And I don't know what else to say, babe. Go ahead and say something.
Well, in regards to this, you get all the space. You get to be angry today. And I'm going to give one more awareness for you.
Okay.
So you can give yourself permission to do what you need to do today. How are you going to express what you're feeling today, however you want to? Is today, this actual, the date that we are recording, is a very significant day. And it makes sense that everything's pulling up right now. I know that too. So you get all the space, you get all the compassion.
I know. Yeah, I'm trying. Why couldn't the fucking podcast just fucking work today? Right. Like, how hard would that have been, right? Like, come the fuck on already. Do your fucking job. Like, that's the whole thing, is like, I feel like I'm doing my fucking job.
You are.
I'm doing my fucking work. Like if we look at this thing and we're all in this thing together and we're all trying to like fly this fucking planet through the fucking cosmos and not like have it destroyed by an asteroid. Like it takes all of us to do our fucking work. And I'm doing mine.
That's all you can do.
That's not all I can do. I can be real fucking angry that other people aren't doing theirs. You know?
Yes. That is still your work though. You're like, shut up. You get to be angry.
Yeah.
Like that's my point. I'm not like, do the work so you're not angry. I'm like, yes, you get to feel that. You're allowed to feel that. You should feel it. Fuck the shoulds. Like you get to feel that and acknowledge yourself and your anger and your boundaries and say, this is not right. This is not something that gets to be in my however you want to say that.
Yeah.
You don't have to articulate it in a pretty way. You get to just be pissed off.
Yeah. You just get to be pissed off.
Yeah.
Well, I am.
Yeah.
I'm angry and upset. What else did you have? Did you get to elaborate and express your ideas and everything around anger?
I feel like it. I think it's like find a way to get that awareness of boundaries and not just like to really dive into it. Allow yourself to express it. Quit masking violence with anger and telling people that violence is anger and anger is violence. When anger is your message.
It's a real clear sign that something isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've displayed beautifully how it may just be triggering a different thing in your life that was not right, where your safety was threatened. So it may not be the surface level thing of what you're experiencing. It may just trigger the core wound or a core wound or an issue that lies well beneath the surface.
You inspired a practice that can help you identify that. Would you like me to share that, or would you like to save that for another time?
I inspired a practice?
Yes.
Let's hear it.
Like when you are not in that angry, maybe you are in that angry moment. Maybe this is the way you express it. Maybe it's writing it out. Just like whatever's right for you. I'm not going to try and guide what's right for you. But when, like, for instance, feeling this thing, how beautifully you were able to express because there was a safe outlet. When you find that, to maybe write it down. And if you don't want to sit there and write it down because you're going too fast or typing it out, record yourself. Maybe just say it out loud, but describe it without the focal point of it. What are you feeling? So when you were talking about the computer, so say all the things that it made you feel, and then be able to go back and hear it later. To go back, so when you're hearing all of these emotions, all of these things without the context of the computer program not working, so you don't have the association, but you get to express where your boundary is and what it made you feel. When you can hear that separately, what memory does that bring up? What does that sound like? What does it like uncover when you have the framework, but without the causation? What causation then gets brought to the surface that you can now shed light on because you were able to express yourself?
It makes a lot of sense.
It's just theory. Just kidding. We'll have to give that one some practice.
Yeah, we'll have to practice it. Let's flip it real quick.
Let's flip it.
We'll project everything outward now, so we're going to work on stuff. Well, I'm going to make you angry, so then we can figure that out and sit in that process. Here we go, babe.
Okay. I'm going to go pee first.
This episode is brought to you by us and anger. I think we need to talk about it some more.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've got any more in me today.
It's okay.
It's an interesting emotion, to say the least. And I think you're spot on in regards to being able to recognize that it is a triggering emotion directly correlated to your safety. because I was sitting there and I was like, how in the fuck does anything to do with the silliness of the podcast have to do with my safety? And then you helped me see it. So, yep. I love you.
I love you.